theyeshiva.net.
The shir is dedicated by Reb Shimshon and Rivki Vershansky in loving memory of Reb Zalman Yudah ben Reb Shalom Yeshaya Daich Zichroinei Levracha. Thank you very, very much. So let me give literally a few paragraph summation of what we learned last time, and then we'll continue from there. He began the Mamer with the pasuk Basi Legani achosi kala. Hashem says, I came to my garden to be with my achosi, my sister, and my kala, my bride. And on this the Medrash says, the Medrash Rebbe, Legani means lignuni, my garden. It's not just a garden, the world is a garden. It's Legani, lignuni, it's my personal chuppah, my personal canopy, chuppah canopy, what they call the bridal canopy, where the chassan and kala would be together after the wedding. And this was exclusive, it was intimate, it was very special and unique. And the Medrash explains, because ikar shchina b'tachtonim haisa. When the world was created, the primary place of the shchina, where the shchina wanted to be, was where? In this world, b'tachtonim, in the lowest place of reality. And then there were the 7 stories that caused the Shekhinah to depart, as he discussed, and then the 7 tzaddikim that brought it back, until the 7th, Moshe, who brings it back down to the earth. Moshe is Shvi, after Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Levi, Kahas, Amram, and then Moshe is number 7. So in this, Moshe is the 7th, Kol HaShvi and Chavivin. The Medrash says all the 7th are beloved. Like you see in the days, the 7th day is Shabbos. You see in the months, the 7th month is Chodesh HaShvi, is Tishrei. And in the years, the 7th year is Shemitah, a whole year of Shabbos. So the Medrash says, Medrash of YY Rebbe, that Kol HaShvi and all the 7th have a special, unique quality. Interesting, there's a Maharal, somebody sent me this week, Maharal of Prague. I think it's in the Sefer Gvuras Hashem. It says in Parsha Shmois, in this week's Parsha, Ulechayin Midian Sheva Bonas. The priest of Midian, Yisro, had 7 daughters. 7 daughters. You have a Shmois, is there a Chumash there? It says, Ulechayin Midian Sheva Bonas. Yeah. Moshe runs away. The Kohen Midian has 7 daughters. And the shepherds came and they persecuted them, they expelled them from the well. So Moshe stood up and he saved them. And then ultimately he gets married to Tzipora. So the Maral says, what's the Gila Chayin Midyon Sheva Bonus? Doesn't marry 7 girls. Sheva Bonus, the number 7. Why is that so negeya? If it was 2, if it was 3, if it was 10, it was 8. You could say he had daughters and Moshe saved them. In Torah, everything is b'diuk. It's not stam. It happened to be it was 7. Why do we have to know about it? We don't know their names, so tell me their names also. What were their names? We only know one name. Tell me their names. That answer. It's not negaya what their names are. So the Maral says on Intimated the Kivayat, he says that Tzipora was the 7th. The 7 daughters, and Tzipora was the 7th. And Kol HaShviin Chavivin. Just like Moshe Rabbeinu. So it wasn't Stam a Shidduch. It was a Shidduch of Shvi to Shvi. The 7th generation to the 7th generation. Interessant. Al Kolpon. So that's what he brings, it Kol HaShvi and Chavivin. So Moshe brings the Shekhinah down to the earth. And the main avodah is through the Mishkan, which the whole avodah of the Mishkan was V'shachanti b'seichem, to bring the Shekhinah into the world, especially through the Karbonis from the word Kiruv. The Mishkan was built through Atzei Shittim. Shittim comes from the word Shtus, which means folly, stupidity, insanity. And the avodah is to take the Shtus, the insanity of the darkness of the world, the lie of the world, the Sheker, and turn it into Keresh. Sheker becomes Keresh, which are the beams, Kroshim of the Mishkan, which are made from Shittim. So they transform the Sheker, the Shtus, into Kesher, into a knot, into a connection, and into Kroshim, into the foundations of the Mishkan. Like the Rambam says, that when you go in one extreme, you have to go to the other extreme. So in order to repair the shtus, the insanity of darkness, It's not enough just to go with logic. A person has to find the shtus, the insanity of holiness, like the Gemara says in Ksuvas, ahani le shtusei l'sava, like we explained last time. And that's why the Jewish people are called Tzivois Hashem, because the definition of a soldier is Mesidus Nefesh. When a soldier goes to war, the only way that victory can happen is if there's a complete dedication that's unequivocal and absolute, and an unwavering commitment without the calculations of logic. A deeper part, a deeper core of the soldier comes out, a complete dedication and unwavering that touches the soldier at the core. Only that way you can be victorious. And every single Jew has that in him, like it says in Tanya, and that's why all the Jewish people are called Tzivus Hashem. So now he continues. He continues to explain in the Mamer. In order to achieve victory in the war, and here we're talking about the battle for the world, the battle for history, the battle for reality. What type of reality do we live in? What type of reality do we live in ourselves and in the entire world? So for this victory, there's an oitzer, there's a treasure, that's given from above. An example for this is by a person, by a mortal king, a king of flesh and blood, engaged in a battle. The Mamer Basi Legani, the original Basi Legani, I spoke last year about the history of the Basi Legani of the Rebbe Ayatz that he gave out for the day of his Istalkos, Yud Shvat Tovshin Yud. He gives an example, he says, that the kings have treasures. They have treasures. And there are oitzeres that the king may have not touched till that point. Not only his own treasures, but treasures that he has amassed from his parents and forefathers and from the dynasty of monarchs and royals, maybe for generations. They're so precious sometimes that he doesn't even show them to other people. Not only doesn't use them or give them away or sell them, they're so precious, they're so intimate, they represent the royalty itself. It's hard for us to understand today because we don't live in a world of kings and queens. If you go to Russia, you go to Petersburg, you see the palaces over there, the Hermitage. You get a hasaga, exodus of generations, hundreds and hundreds of years, which are priceless in terms of jewelry and gold and silver and artwork, paintings. So the king doesn't even show them to anybody. But when it comes to the war, when it comes for winning the war, so he puts himself in danger, and mevazbez, he'll squander, he'll utilize all the oitzeres of him and his fathers and his forefathers to be victorious in the war. No holds bar, he holds nothing back. Even though it's so precious, but there's something even more precious, and that is the victory. And therefore, for this, he's going to give away things that he would never even think of giving away, because something is touching him in a place that is beyond the regular rational structure in which he lives in. So he gives everything up. The inyan is the word netzach comes from netzach. It comes from the midah of netzach. In a person's soul, there's different midas, different characteristics. Generally, we have chesed, gvura, teferes, netzach, chord, yesod, malchus, the 7 emotions. One of them is midas hanetzach, the midah of victory. Victory is the ability of a person to be victorious despite all odds. When there's no obstacles, when there's no adversity, there's no netzach. I don't have to win. Just like in a regular netzachin. People are playing a game, right? It's a fake netzach, but that concept is a competition. The question is, who's going to win? So I have to bring out within me, there's a quality in the soul that a person wants to win. I want to overcome. And then when there's a person faces obstacles in life, adversity in life, darkness in life, so what gets triggered, what gets aroused is the midah in the soul that's called midas hanetzach. our ability not to surrender and just say, yeah, and duck, and just let me drown, but rather to fight and to be victorious. So the Rebbe says, Midas HaNetzach magaz ba'omek hanefesh b'yoser. It touches very, very deeply in the soul. The chord of Midas HaNetzach runs deeper than other Midas. V'lachein, hine kechol shetigdal mailas ha'adam yiyeh etzle Midas HaNetzachin ba'omek yoser. And because of that, the more you're in touch with your soul, the more you're in touch with your Midas HaNetzach. A greater person, he says, who's more in touch with his soul, the Midas HaNetzach is also deeper. You have two types of netzach. There's what's called, they call it in the slang, natzchonis. Petty natzchon. Natzchonis means, I'll do anything to win the argument. I'll do anything to win the game. I'll cheat, I'll lie, I'll deceive, I'll manipulate, I'll exploit. That often comes from insecurity. That's the opposite. Like in every midah, you have it in Kedusha, and you have it in Klippa. You have the real thing, and then you have the fake thing that uses the real thing in order to give itself support. It feeds off it like a virus. So netzach also, you have natzchanas, that's petty. Basically, you have a very fragile ego, and if I lose the argument, I'm not going to exist. So therefore, I have to be confrontational. I have to argue. I can't admit. I can't apologize. I can't say I'm sorry. I can't back down. There are people who do crazy, crazy things because of their natzchanas. I'll do anything to win. You see a Mamer with the Ohr Chaim that I once read in Radin, or saw it or something, I don't remember. Years ago in Radin, there was some achloikas. And the person who was running it, he initiated it and he was very involved. He was one of the Balabatim. He was a Jew who lived in Radin, and he got consumed in the machloikas, and he was fighting and fighting. Somebody in his family got sick. One of the children. They said the Ohr Chaim called him, came to him, and said, you never know, but it could be that this is because of the machloikas. Machloikas brings terrible things. Why don't you back down? So they say the person told the Ohr Chaim, I don't even want to repeat it, but just it shows you what a crazy ego can be. He says, all my kids can die, I'm going to win the war. So this is a classic example. He completely lost his mind, lost his sanity. This is shtus in the most extreme reality. That's netzach, right? In a very toxic way. But like everything, there's a netzach in Kedusha. So netzach in Kedusha is actually a very deep and rich quality in the soul. It's the ability of a person who's been knocked down again and again and again and again. And you would think that at some point they should just surrender, but there's a spark in the soul that doesn't get defeated. And not only that, it comes back, and it comes back with all its power. That netzach is rooted very deeply in the soul. The more you're in touch with your soul, the more you experience that netzach. Because it's not the victory of the ego. It's the victory of the soul. It's the victory of truth. It's the victory of light. It's the victory of love. It's the victory of authenticity over lies. The other type of netzach that I described is the victory of stupidity. So you won an argument, fine. So you know how to argue with your wife until the point she says you're right. Okay, Baruch Hashem, you're a genius. Or the other way around. I don't want to discriminate against men. Sometimes it works the other way around also. Like somebody once said, with my wife, I always have the last two words. Yes, dear. I always have the final words. So that's a relationship where there's actually no connection. It's either I win or you win. And if you win, I lost. And if I win, you lost. And we're busy with it. So that's the netzach of Sitra Achra. But the netzach in holiness is actually the didan netzach. It's the concept of victory in the most powerful sense, the ability of the soul to shine even in impossible circumstances. And even if it looks like it was defeated, right? Like the Rabbi Akiva, the Gemara says in Yevamos, let's do with Rabbi Akiva, that Rabbi Gamliel once said, he was in the Bais Medrash, and he said that yesterday he was at the ocean, he was coming in a boat, and he saw another boat, there was a shipwreck. And he said he's mourning because Rabbi Akiva was on the boat. Rabbi Akiva was on the ship. It was a shipwreck. The ship broke, or whatever happened, there was a storm and the people drowned. As Rabbi Gamliel was talking, Rabbi Akiva walked into the Bais Medrash. Rabbi Akiva walked in. So that was a shock. He thought he was already in the Olam Emes. So he asked Rabbi Akiva, what happened? So Rabbi Akiva said, Daf shel sfina nizdamnali. He was about to drown, but then in the ocean he found a daf, a plank, one of the boards, a daf, a tablet of the sfina nizdamnali, and I held on to it. Val kol gal v'gal ninati leiroshi. And every wave that came, I gave him a shalom aleichem. I bent down my head. I didn't fight it. I'll call gal v'gal. Every wave that came, right? A person can get swept away, chas v'shalom. Ninati le'b'roshi. I surrendered my head. In other words, I wasn't going to fight. You don't fight the wave because it's stronger. He bowed down. Ninati le'b'roshi. Like he greeted him. He welcomed him. In other words, surfers know this, right? You have to follow. I'm not an expert in this, but I've been told you have to follow the rhythm of the wave. You don't fight it. You use it for your momentum. I'll call God. So it looked like Rabbi Akiva is losing. No, fight the wave. Go fight the wave. Rabbi Akiva, the way he fought it was through his own power. Sometimes netzach is I'm not fighting you, but within I'm not going to be defeated.
You can also crawl on the bottom to avoid the surf.
Right, crawl on the bottom. Yeah. Yeah. Right. So how netzach expresses itself could be in many, many different ways. It looked like Rabbi Akiva was just surrendering to the wave. He wasn't surrendering. He made sure that he's going to come out on top. It's a different type of midas hanetzach. Sometimes we do that. But it's not because you're a loser. It's because you're actually a winner. You have that courage to be able to know what should be done at this moment in order to survive. You have sometimes... I'm not going to get into it now, but sometimes as people develop, they had to, as children, they had to bend their head not to fight the wave. So they look at themselves as losers, but really that's what allowed them to survive. And now they come out and there's a person there. Now you'd have to realize that actually it was your power, it wasn't your weakness. In other words, in that moment in life, this was the most powerful thing you can do in order to be able to emerge on top. And now you can celebrate it. You understand what I'm saying? People look back at themselves. Why didn't I fight? Why didn't I do this? You were 4 years old, for heaven's sake. You were brilliant enough to say, Ninati le'b'roshi. You nodded with your head. But you know what? There's a person. You're here. You got what you needed in crazy circumstances. And now you could be megalit. So midas hanetzach is that ability of the soul not to surrender to evil. Not to surrender to darkness. That's what he says. When the melech feels it's negeya for netzachim, he'll squander everything. The deepest oitzeres don't come close because netzach is deeper than that. You understand? That's what he's saying. And a person is more in touch with the soul. They have more netzach, not less netzach, because it's not a netzach of ego. I'm going to win the argument. I'll defeat you. I'll prove you wrong. It's a netzach that doesn't come from weakness. It's a netzach that comes, on the contrary, from confidence. I once asked a big healer why he doesn't get cynical from all the pain that he saw. He saw so much pain in this. So he told me, how could I get cynical? He's been a doctor, I don't know, for 50, 60 years, a lot of years, and he dealt with a lot of difficult situations. So he told me, how can I get cynical when I see the power of people's souls? That for decades they have been crushed and destroyed, and you would think at some point they would just die, emotionally or physically. And yet there's something in them that doesn't die. It always remains intact and it comes back. So he said, you can't get cynical. So all the pain didn't make him cynical. It actually turned him into a person who realized the power that's beneath all that pain. That's midas hanetzach. And this is similar to what Chazal says, an interesting Gemara. You have to understand what this means. The Gemara says in Yom Chavez Talmud Chacham, who literally is not noikim v'noiter, doesn't take vengeance and doesn't bear a grudge like a snake, like a serpent, is nishkin Talmud Chacham. Some people misunderstand this Gemara. What's pshat? Sha'azui amayla shebinyan anitzachim. What ain't it Talmud Chacham? What? Because you don't take revenge? Because you're not a noikim v'noiter? Ela shanikim v'anetirit tzechelias lefiat noyim shenizbaru begemara bepaiskim. There's noikim v'noite that's asur al pitayda, loy sikim v'loy siti. You're not allowed to take revenge. You're not supposed to take revenge. We're talking here the way it's discussed in Gemara and Poskim, like he says in the Rambam Hilchos Talmud Torah and Maseches Yuma over there. So why is that negate a Talmud Chacham? The definition of a Talmud Chacham is a Talmud of Chachma, a student of Chachma. In other words, somebody who's truly in a state of bittul, truly in a state of no ego. That's a true Talmud Chacham. Not just he learns Torah and his IQ is great and he amasses information, but he becomes Torah. When he's noikim v'noited, it's not personal. Never personal. You offended me, now you're on my blacklist, I'll spend my life destroying you. Then it has nothing to do with a Talmud Chacham. Then it has to do with a war of a big ego that needs help, that needs healing, that has its own issues. That's why he uses the word kenachash. What's a nachash? Why a nachash? Why a snake? Literally a snake, is he like a Talmud Chacham becomes like a snake. It says in Sfarim, and it's also from the Baal Shem Tov, he says, the Gemara says in Erkin, Hashem tells the nachash, you're interesting. All animals, when they kill, it's for hana. A lioness doesn't kill a gazelle, stam, let's go kill. She needs a meal. She needs to feed her cubs. All animals, when they kill, they do it because they're hungry. That's the way they get food. They can't go to the store, so that's how they do it in the jungle. He says, besides the nachash, l'cha ma no yesh l'cha. You don't even have any hana. The venom that the nachash does, there's no benefits. He says, that's why it's kenachash. If the Talmud Chacham has even the slightest hana, then it's not a Talmud Chacham. Then he has a lot of issues that he has to work on. Kenachash means there's absolutely no personal feeling in the sense that I'm getting a benefit or enjoyment from it. Elamai, the idea is that somebody who's really connected with the truth, sometimes they feel that this is unjust. And the victory, light must defeat darkness. Love must defeat hate. Truth has to defeat evil. That's the noikim v'noite. The noikim v'noite is midas netzach, that's rooted in the soul. It's rooted that love needs to defeat hate. Truth needs to defeat lies. Somebody who's more in touch with their soul, it's much stronger, it's much more powerful. First of all, because they care much more, and because they see the reality much more, and because they have less fear. So that's the midas netzach. Malach is kama v'kama b'negei l'melech shenyoni hu shemashich mei v'mayla gavoya mikolam kolel gam asadim hadei midas hanitzach netzlei b'toik. This is even a Talmud Chacham, certainly a melech. The pasuk says meshich mei v'mayla gavoya mikolam, from his shoulder and higher he's taller than the nation, meaning he was chosen as a king, like it says by Shaul HaMelech, because of his grandeur, his magnitude, his greatness. So the midas hanetzach is even stronger. The more edel you are, the more nafshi-isdik you are, the more pnimi-isdik you are, the more the midas hanetzach is also developed. Because it's not my ego defeating your ego. It's that the truth, authenticity, should reign supreme. That's what's negeya. Yeah, similar, yeah. So that's why a Talmud Chacham is certainly a melech. Umitzad midas hanitzachin, hine afilu ha'oitzu shaloi teshurem ayin adam, loizu b'vatcha peseyach oisam v'noisnam, ala oitzu shemavaz b'zoisam, umechalak oisam aydei sorei hapkidim shem kidei achayal. So when it comes to a moment of victory, everything is put on the line. The melech puts himself on the line. Because what is it a victory for? Not a victory, I should get another territory of yours, I should get your money. We're not talking about that netzach. This is a victory to be able to defeat evil. Like in the Second World War. Right? The sense of many... what were you fighting? You were fighting in order to conquer Germany? Because they have oitzerus. They happen to have oitzerus that they stole from the Jews. That's true. They had a lot of oitzerus. We'll have a bigger country. It's a fight about oil. It's a fight about banks, about resources. You're talking about an evil force that literally wanted to destroy the world. It's a different type of netzach. So the more somebody is in touch with their neshama, the more the midas hanetzach is there. Because the more you're sensitive to goodness and its power and the need that it should be defeat, it should defeat evil. So the greater somebody is, the more the midas hanetzach is. Just like in your personal life. The more you're in touch with your soul, the more netzach is negeya. You realize this is not for me. This can't win in my life. This is netzach in the most beautiful sense of the word. This dirt in a person's life, it's pasnish from it, out of here. And sometimes you need netzach because it's not easy. You have to fight. This is not fight necessarily with a fist. Sometimes the deepest fight is internally. Not a big person, sometimes you're not in touch with it. Yeah, you let it be. But somebody who's sensitive, I'm not going to deal with this infection, with this dirt, with this filth. Out. Why? Because he has more light in his life. He's more allergic to stupidity, to toxicity, to darkness. And then you have it on a global scale. Like sometimes you're fighting literally, like today, what the Jewish people are fighting. It's an example of that. I'm saying this, the Second World War. The reason I'm saying that, because by the Second World War, even the Shoitim understood it. And today, not everybody understands it, but that's what you're dealing with. What's the Mesidus Nefesh that you see by the Jewish people today? Especially by the soldiers. What is it? It's this midas hanetzach. It's beyond cheshbonos. You have a father who has 6 kids and he's going with simcha and he knows where he's going. He's going into the lion's den. Worse than a lion's den. Lions kill when they're hungry. These guys kill and mutilate just for joy. Allah Akbar. Much worse than all. It's an insult to the animals to call them animals. Animals have a cheshbon. Animals are trying to survive. But what do the Jewish people feel? The Jewish people feel, what are they fighting for? You're fighting for money. You're fighting for territory. You're fighting for the beaches of Gaza. You're fighting to be able to eat falafel in Gaza. It's a fight for the soul of the world. It's a fight for the Jewish people. It's a fight for goodness. It's a fight to defeat darkness and evil. That's the nekuda. For that, all the oitzes the Melech squanders. Your toif is the inyan. It's a different inyan. It touches the nefesh beyond seichel. That's what we call mesidus nefesh. It's not against logic. It's beyond logic. It's not against. It's beyond logic. You understand what I'm saying? Yeah. Not against logic. Shtus of klippe is lower than logic. It's inferior. This is l'mayla min haseichel. It touches a place that it's not calculated with logic. I'm making an investment, so I should have a return. It's something where the person gives everything up. Because it touches the dveikus, what you really, really, really care about at the core. We're talking now here a real melech. Again, melachim itself, most of them were despots and meshugoyim, or tyrants or dictators, so then they were netzach, I didn't like your nose, so I behead you. So that's a meshugas netzach. I'm going to talk to you about the Roman emperors, how they behaved with the subjects they didn't like. Cruelty and meshugas and sadism. Like in everything, there's b'charta b'chayim, right? There's the tzad ha'toiv and there's the tzad ha'ra. We had our kings too, yeah. We had our share of crazy kings too, yeah. They weren't always crazy too, which is sometimes worse. So that's what the melech, for the milchama, the melech gives all the oitzres, even the oitzres that he never used and he never even showed to anybody. And now not only he shows it, mevazbez, which means he spends it. Mevazbez means, like the Gemara says, mevazbez in the ksubas, mevazbez al yevazbez, he spends it. Like squanders it, not squanders it to waste it, spends it to win the war. And part of that is himself, his own life. He puts his life on the line. Why? Because there's something that's deeper even than life, even than physical life. There's something deeper even than my life, my identity, my reputation, my existence. Something touches the person that's deeper than everything. And he distributes it through the Sarei HaPkidim. The Sarei HaPkidim means through the various ministers, the Pkidim, the commanders who are in charge of the army. The objective is interestingly, that the treasure should go to the soldiers, to the foot soldiers, the Anshe HaChayil. They're the ones who do the work. Meaning, you have in every army, you have the Pekidei HaChayil, the commanders, the strategists, the generals, those who plan, those who understand that what's called Taksisei Milchama. How do you say Taksisei Milchama in English? Taksisei Milchama are all the maneuvers of war. So you have the elite minds that orchestrate, choreograph, and plan the movements. And they can't be on the front line. If they're on the front line, they endanger the whole war. Their job is they have to be in the back. They have to be in the bunkers. They have to be in the command center, whatever it is. He says the oitzers are not for them. They may distribute it, but the oitzers go to the foot soldiers, to the people on the line. Why? Because they're the ones who make the netzach. So the Rebbe is saying in the Nimshal also, by Jews also, you have those. they're big minds, so to speak. They could plan the war, but the oitzers go to who? To the Anshe HaChayil. So this is all a marshal that in the great battle of history, the battle of transforming the shtus into a mishkan, the king gives the deepest oitzers. And this is a nimshal that the Jewish people should be able to win the war. Which war? To transform the sheker, the lie of the world, in all of its forms. But the common denominator is that there is a lie. To transform this lie and turn the sheker into kedesh. Because remember we explained, we don't only want to defeat the lie, you want to transform the lie. That's much deeper, it's hapch. So that there should be a place of v'shachanti. Noistim le'melmayla loyra kanyanim shein begeder gilu yelagam inyanim elu shu degamasam lamatu inyana oitzer shu kamus v'chosam yein korayim elvada melech atzmai v'hainu shezeu inyan shalamayla mekol inyan shal gilu afilu gilu bedarga hayoser elyon. There is an oitzer that's given to the Anshe HaChayil, to the soldiers, to the Teves Hashem. And this is not only things that are usually revealed, like we explained in the Mashal, the Melech goes to the secret treasures that nobody ever saw, but even those things that are an example for the oitzer, for the hidden treasure, which has been concealed from the eye of anyone besides the king himself. No one had access to it. Spiritually, we're talking about something that's beyond what's called gilui, revelation, what's manifested. Even the highest form of gilui, that's still not the oitzer. The oitzer is something that's even deeper than that which is usually manifested and revealed. In other words, at this stage of the war, you access something on a core level, core, that till that point has been completely concealed with no access to it. In the language of Chassidus, it's beyond gilui, it's beyond giluyim, it's beyond that which is usually revealed and manifested. And this is the point that he's now going to begin developing. That as history develops, and you get closer to Geula, and the Milchama needs to be finished, so there are oitzers, and this is fascinating, that the Rebbe Rayatz gave out this message literally the day he was nostalgic. And the day that the Hanhaga of Chassidus went over from the 6th generation to the 7th generation. Literally from the 6th generation to the 7th, Kol HaShvi and Chavivin, and this was his message. So that's why every year, Yud Shevat, when the Rebbe would say the Mamer Basi Legani, he would bring out this Nekuda. But this year, Tavshin Chav Dalet, like Tavshin Pei Dalet, is chapter 14, Yud Dalet. So this is all an introduction to Perek Yud Dalet. So this is an oitzer, that things that were never revealed throughout all of history are revealed in order to win the war. And this is a mashal for the whole, that what the Rebbe is saying is that in this generation, in order to win the war, you have oitzers that were never accessible, and the Melech, Hashem, reveals them, gives them to the Jewish people, gives them especially to the soldiers. In other words, people who are in the trenches, who are in the front lines, facing the darkness, gives them this because it's the only way they could win the war. This is one of the reasons that's explained for the whole Chassidus being revealed in the last generations. If it's a part of Torah, it should have been revealed earlier. But the pshat is, there comes times in history that the Melech gives and reveals oitzrus that in previous times were not necessarily so essential in order to live. But then there comes a time this becomes oxygen, and it becomes the most powerful resource. It's very hard to win the war without it, or maybe impossible. So it was always there, but it wasn't always accessible. And it's in this itself, it could be something that's beyond even the highest level of Gilui, the highest level of divine revelation. Even that itself is so sublime, and the Oitzer is deeper than that too. This is all based on the Mamer Basi Legani. He's still explaining the Mamer Basi Legani that the Rebbe Rayatz. He says, "V'hinei hadar gachi el yoyne binyan agiluyu." That's why you see in every generation, on one level we say the generations get lower. On another level, the Oitzers get higher. The Oitzers get deeper and deeper. Why? What our generation, we always say, all the drushes that you'll hear is, we're this and we're this, we're this. You're not like your father wasn't like your Zaydi, Zaydi wasn't like your Elter Zaydi. But this Mamer brings out the opposite, Nakuda. You have Oitzres that your father didn't have, your Zaydi didn't have, your Elter Zaydi didn't have. So it's not a contradiction. Haba Hatalia. When you have to deal with certain realities, you need to be given resources that are much, much deeper, to the point of levels that were never discussed before. That's why Chassidus started to articulate elements of Torah and Yiddishkeit that were always there. It's essential to Torah, but it's never been articulated like this. It's never been discussed so freely. That's pshat yafutzu my netzach chutza. It's mayonis. It's the well springs. They're usually under the earth. But there comes a time where they're they're disseminated. Yafutzu. The bizbuz are oitzeres. Why? Dafke because of the Yerid. Dafke because of the Chayshach. Dafke because of the Milchama. You have to be able to get in touch with a different part of yourself. You have to get in touch, and everybody knows when you're facing crisis, chas v'shalom, nobody should ever face crisis, but we do face crisis. The Jewish people and people individually. And Haba Atah, it's always connected. The old self doesn't always work. Sometimes you develop tools for life, right? And it's fine, you're a functional guy, you're a good guy. But then, boom, something flies in your face and the old self is just not working. Huh? I'm not surviving. Mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually. What happens? So either the person could break, or you have to learn parts of yourself that you never knew about. And ultimately you have to learn about your Oitzer. And what's the Oitzer? The Oitzer is that which nobody saw. You know who also didn't see it? You didn't see it. You didn't even know about it. The only one who knew about it was the king himself. The creator in you knew about it. And it was kept secret. And the reason is because it's too precious. You can't just, it's not a museum. Come see it. It's not a museum. Some things you bring people to a museum. You pay $9, $30, we'll show you the beautiful museum. You go to the Metropolitan Museum, you can go to the Guggenheim Museum, and you can see very expensive pieces of art. But then there's there's no museum for it. I have a friend, he once told me, he was a New York yeshiva bacher. Today he's a rav in a community. He's a real New Yorker. He grew up in New York, New York culture. So New Yorkers have a certain way of talking and relating. So he once went to visit London. In London, he went to the not the change of guards. He went to I guess it's a Tower of London where you go to see the crown jewels. I don't know where it is, but somewhere in London. Where? If it's I think the Tower of London, if I'm not mistaken. It was given by the Big Ben. You heard about it, okay? So he went there, and they show you over there the crown jewels. They now took them out for the coronation of King Charles III, after his mother Queen Elizabeth II died. So you have there crown jewels more than 1,000 years. More than 1,000 years, like he says here, oitzris from Avoseyim, Vavois all the way to the earliest kings and monarchs of England, 12th century, 11th century. It's Meshunadik. And so they give a tour of the crown jewels. So this yeshiva bacher, there was a woman, a historian, who was giving the tour to the tourists. So he's a New Yorker, and Nachmed, a yeshiva bacher from New York. So when she finishes extolling the greatness of the crown jewels, what's his question? What do you think his question was? What's a New York yeshiva bacha's question who has a business mind? His question is, how much would it cost if I wanted to buy it? He's already building a business. So he told me that she almost had a heart attack and died on the spot. He almost had to call the Cheved Kadisha from aggravation and disbelief that he can ask such a question. Like, she looked at him like a shaitu who just fell down from Mars to ask the question. Like, the chutzpah to ask how much it cost. So she's like, there's no price. They're never going to be sold. So what's his next question? Next question is, how much do you pay for insurance? How much do you insure? When you have to insure something, you have to see a price. Yeah, it's a house, it's a garage, it's a car. So this was even worse. The first question you could say is a Tinnik Shenishba. He's an American. What do Americans understand about monarchy? Right? But this was already even worse. So he told me she gives a scream. The crown jewels can't be insured because they're priceless. They can't. They're not insured. You're right. They're not insured. They're priceless. So I just thought of it as I was learning. So he told me that he learned from that a big lesson in life. Some things you can't insure because they're not beged their money. It's not beged their money. You say, yeah, but $1 billion. It's not $1 billion. It's not 10. It's not something that relates to money. It's a different level. That's what he's talking about. Lahavdil in Ruchnius, the oitzer is something. It's not even begeder gilui. It can't be articulated. That comes out for the netzach of the mulchama. And this is what he's going to start explaining. The rest of the maamar, this is going to be the nekuda. V'hinei hadarga achiel yoina binyan agilui. Hu agilui she'ein lo soy ve'ein lo tachlis. V'zeu she'mevi ba'mamer ma she'kosov b'zoya b'tikuni zoya she'oirein soy v'lamayla adin ketz u'lamata adin tachlis. You remember? The highest level of gilui is a gilui which has no soif, has no end, and has no tachlis, has no finiteness, has no limit. And this is what the maamar brings from Tikkun Zohar. The Zohar says, Oirein soif is lamayla adin ketz lamata adin tachlis. Literally, the energy, the light of the Ein Sof, of Hashem, goes upward to no end and downward to no end. That's the expression in Zohar. And the last few years of Basi Legani, which was based Perikid Beis, Yud Gimel, Yud Dalet, which by the Rebbe was Tavshin Chav Beis, Tavshin Chav Gimel, and now Tavshin Chav Dalet, are focused on this explanation of Oirein Sof. L'mayla adin ketz l'mata adin tachlis. And he explains, V'hainu, shemizeh shenikre b'shem oir, movin shezeh inyan shel gilui, sharei geder oiru gilui. Aval ein zeh oir gilui stam, ala oir shenikre b'shem ein soif, shu l'mayla adin ketz l'mata adin tachlis. The fact that the Zohar calls it oir, light is a metaphor. Light is what allows us to see things. Light is the ability that Hashem created that any object in the world should be revealed to somebody else or something else. If there was no concept of light, there was no ability for me to see you, for you to see me, for us to see anything. Just like literally when you put on the light in the room, it doesn't create everything that's in the room, but if it's dark, you can't see. Light allows us to see. In a more general, abstract way, the concept of Oir is that everything emits what we call today electromagnetic energy forces. It really emits frequencies of light that our eyes, the retina in our eyes, have the sensors that absorb it, and the brain interprets it, and it says, oh, this is a beam, this is a person, this is a Moshe, this is a Herschel, this is a Shaul, this is a Isaac, this is a Lahavdil, a tissue box, this is a table. That's the concept of Oir. Oir is Gilui. That's what Oir is. Oir is revelation. And everything has Oir. That's what Oir is. You have the light of the sun, you have the light of the moon, you have the light of a candle, and then you have everything gives off light. That's what allows us to see it. So Oir is Gilui. But here the Zohar says, what Oir are we talking about? It's Oir Ein Sof. The Oir is called Ein Sof. And that's Pshat, like we learned in previous years, the Oir itself is infinite. And on this, the Zohar says, it's L'mayla din ketzel, L'mata din tachlis. Now, this is important to understand. When it says, it seems superfluous. Like you said in previous Maimorim, it's in the previous years of Basi Legani, you could have just said, if it's infinite, it goes up all the way and it goes down all the way. In Zohar, every word is precise, it's b'diuk. If you're saying something is Ein Sof, what does it mean? It's Ein Sof, it's infinite, it's limitless. So you have to tell me, it goes up all the way and it goes down all the way. Maybe you should also talk about Dorim and Sofin and Mizrach and Ma'irav. So the pshat is he's saying three separate things. First he's saying Eir is Ein Sof. Now he's saying something more. It's L'mayla din ketz. And now he's saying something more, or L'mata din tachlis. It's not repeating himself three times. If you say something is infinite, so it's in America, and it's in Israel, and it's in Russia, and it's in Asia, and it's in Africa, and it's in South America too. It's in the entire planet. Okay, Yeshikoyach, yeah. For example, you'll say the sun shines everywhere on the planet. So now you're going to go through every single country? I mean, you could. But yeah, if it's Eir Ein Sof, so yeah, it's L'mayla, it's L'mata. If it's unlimited, it's unlimited. In Chassidus, every word in the Zohar is b'diuk. It's not stam. So there's an inyan of Ein Sof, there's an inyan of L'mayla, there's an inyan of L'mata din tachlis. But l'chayr, it seems like you're saying the same thing. So this is what he starts explaining. There's the concept of Eir Ein Sof. There's L'mayla din ketz. L'mayla din ketz is going to be explained. It's in Perek Tesvav, which is going to be Tafshin Chafei next year. Here's the focus, L'mata din tachlis. Hey, mazbig goydel inyanship is a heichel ma'abir binyan de L'mata din tachlis. There's a big difference between saying the Eir is Ein Sof and the Eir is L'mata din tachlis. And we're going to see the difference in the Hemshech of the Mamer. But we'll see the profundity of it, the amkus of it, and the way it's expressed in Avodah. So he starts explaining what's pshat L'mata adin tachlis. The Eir goes L'mata adin tachlis. The Hainu ad madrega yoysid mata mata shebeseder ishtalshalus ba'olam hazeh tachtun she'olam ha'asiyah. Don't think that the Eir Ein Sof only reaches certain spaces. L'mata adin tachlis means it goes till the madrega, which is the lowest level in Seder Ishtalshalus. The lowest Seder Ishtalshalus means the entire order of creation. The lowest level of Seder Ishtalshalus is Olam Hazeh Tachtun She'olam Ha'asiyah. There too, the Eir is Ein Sof. U'b'olam ha'asiyah gufa, lo rak inyan kedusha v'inyan rishus shabai, ela gam inyan ha'klippas shegam heim kshurim im olam ha'asiyah. In Asiyah itself, there's kedusha in our world, or there's at least voluntary things, trees, oceans, nature, even klippas, which are in olam ha'asiyah. Over there is also the Eir Ein Sof reaches L'mata adin tachlis. V'yiseidim is afil inyanim shem L'mata me'aklippa. Even things that are lower than klippa. What does that mean? Mavur betanya. Explained in Tanya in Chavdal, Perek Chavdal. Sha'adam ha'choytev oiver al ritzayni yisbarach hu garua apachas harbim moed ma'asit rachel v'aklippa k'maymer yitush kadmach. A person who transgresses Hashem's will in a way is lower than klippa. Like the Gemara says, we tell a sinner yitush kadmach. Even the mosquito was created before you. Meaning is even higher than you. At least the klippa is fulfilling its purpose. Its purpose is to be a klippa. It doesn't deviate from its purpose. And not only klippa that protects the fruit, like a shell of a fruit. Even the klippa that entices or persuades the person to transgress Hashem's will, like the example in Zohar, that the king hires a zoina, a promiscuous woman, to entice the prince. So she's a zoina. That's klippa that's trying to entice you, but she's working for the king. She's doing her job. The king actually wants that she shouldn't succeed and that the prince shouldn't listen to her. And that's how she's going to get a much better wage. She doesn't want you to listen. She can't tell it to you, because if she tells you she doesn't want you to listen, then she lost the whole game. The whole game is lost. So she has to make believe she's a zoina. She's not a zoina. She's working for the king. Nebuch, the person, he's the only one who's fooled. He thinks she's the real thing. He thinks she's a zoina. She's working for the melech. If he says yeah, he makes her a zoina. By saying yeah, he turns her into a zoina. You understand? And then she starts thinking she is. Yeah. So that's clip on the lowest level. He says, but the person who actually sins, he's lower than that. He's the only one not fulfilling his purpose. Sometimes a person could sin working with things in the world that are negative or voluntary things. There's something even lower. You use holiness to go against Hashem's will. I don't want to say the words Beisakise, but that's what it says in Tanya. Somebody takes the head of the king and brings it down and puts it in a Beisakise, puts it in a sewage system. This is already different. Now you're taking the king himself and putting him through the mud. This is where a person uses Torah against Torah. He's a great scholar, so he uses Torah. He says a halacha in the name of Torah, using Torah against itself. If he wouldn't be a Talmud Chacham, nobody would believe him, nobody would trust him. He uses the Torah itself, he uses Kedusha, so this is even a worse case. What is he saying here? The Rebbe is going through different levels of Lamata Adin Tachlis. When you say Oirin Sof Lamata, what does Lamata Adin Tachlis mean? Till where? What's the Ein Tachlis? So he says the first thing is the Oir comes down all the way into this world. Don't think that Oir Ein Sof you only have access to in higher places of reality. Even in this world, Oir Ein Sof is Lamata Adin Tachlis. What does it mean it's Lamata Adin Tachlis? The Ein Sof is accessible and reaches and permeates the lowest reality, even the lowest of the low. But what do we mean the lowest of the low? So you guys, first of all, you have this world. This world, the divine is completely concealed. It's counterintuitive. You don't see the Achdus. It's not like Atzilus, even Bri. It's a world of the lowest world. That's number one. No, number two, he says, but what part of this world? You have vegetation, you have produce, you have oceans, you have sunrise, you have sunset, you have animals, you have reptiles, you have a ganze Welt. You have also Inyani Rishus, things that are voluntary, whether you have food, you have drink, you have so many parts of the world. There's Daimim, Tzemeach, Chaim, Medaber. So he says, even the klippus. Klippus means those forces in this world that are not just neutral, like klippas noiga, for example. Klippus means they're shells, they're husks, they actively conceal godliness. There's a darkness there. That's also the Oir Ein Sof is there. But he says then there's something that's lower than klippa. What's lower than klippa? Klippa means Hashem created a world with forces and realities that cover up Kedusha. That's their job. That's their job. Klippa fulfills its job. It does its job. And Klippa itself, he says, two levels. Klippa is a shell. A banana peel is not a bad thing. A banana peel protects the banana. If a banana would grow without a banana peel, it wouldn't survive on the tree. Why? You can open a banana on your counter, come back a few hours later, it's already brown. Come back 2 days later, it's not edible. Every fruit has a klippa. Why? Because the klippa protects it from the rain, from the scorching heat, from the cold, from the heat, from the different climates. A fruit that develops without a klippa can't survive. Different fruits have different levels of klippa, but every one has a klippa. That's not a bad thing. It's a shomer, it's a protection. In a person in the world, you also have that type of klippa. It says before the Eitz Hadas, you had all the klippas, but they were seen as protectors. What does it mean, protectors? A person needs you need protectors. Those are not klippas. Those are klippas, but they're good klippas. The Rebbe says in Apurim de Kamayim, we learned it once in Torah, Vayikach Haman. He says if a fruit doesn't have a klippa, too much heat will destroy it. Too much rain or coldness will destroy it. The klippa protects it. By a person, it's also that way. He says that's what healthy gaiva is. Healthy gaiva, healthy ego means, yeah, there's too much heat, there's a lot of passion, of taivas. You need a klippa that's going to protect you from it. You have to be able to protect yourself from it. So you need that dignity. You need that self-respect. There's too much coldness, apathy, indifference. You need to protect yourself from it. But then what can happen in life is that the klippa goes wild. Instead of realizing it's supposed to be a protector, it takes over the fruit. That doesn't happen in trees usually, but it happens in us. We all have parts in us that are there to protect our soul. What often happens is, for whatever reason, the klippa doesn't trust the soul, or the klippa is scared, and it becomes a substitute for the soul. So now it's a shomer lepri, now it becomes a substitute. Now it's calling all the shots. So this is where my self-respect and self-love are not protecting my soul. They become a substitute for the poor soul. And therefore they have to turn into crazy egos or to crazy insecure egos. Why? Because the klippa lost its nekuda. You can have a klippa that starts enticing a person to be over on the Ratzon Hashem. But the Rebbe says on every level of klippa, the klippas that do this in the world, they're fulfilling their purpose. Even the Zoino who was hired to entice the person, to challenge the person, is also hired by the king. Then you have something lower, and that's the person who falls prey, the only one who doesn't fulfill the purpose. When a person is over on Hashem's Ratzon, what does it mean? I missed the point. Chayta means you missed the point. I misalign myself with who I am. This even klippa doesn't do. Klippa is doing its job. Whatever its job is. To be a shomer, to entice you. Even that's also, that mata adein tachlis, the oirin soif is there too. In that itself, he says two levels. There's a person who sins with things from the world. Money is neutral. I take money and I do the wrong thing with it. Fine. And then there's somebody who takes kedusha and sins with kedusha. You take Torah itself, like he says, my mitzelim be'echel. You take Torah itself and you use it against Torah. That's the most lamata adein tachlis. Why? Because here you're taking the head of the king and you're putting it through the mud. You want to go to the mud, go to the mud. But now you're taking the king himself and putting him through the mud. That's a whole different level. You understand? That's a different lamata adein tachlis. That's the most painful. Sometimes you have people who say stupid things. That's normal. Then you have people who use the Torah to say stupid things. You understand? Harav Zak, Sie versteht? You use the Torah to say stupid things. Some people hate Jews, right? But then there's people that use the Torah to hate Jews. That's much more painful. You're a hater, you're an egomaniac, you're an egomaniac. You're a tippish, you're a metumtum, fine. So we can have Rachmanis and heal. But now, no, it's not me, it's the Torah. It's not my ego, it's not my mishagas, it's not my trauma, it's not my arrogance, it's not my shtus, it's not my stupidity, it's not my brainwashing, it's not my indoctrination. It's Torah. Now I can't even heal because it's not me. I don't have problems. Go to the Torah. In a way, that can be the worst, you understand? It's toxic, it's poisonous. Why? Because you're using holiness to turn it into poison. Like the Gemara says in Maseches Yuma, that's loy zocha nasa loy sam hamavas. That if a person is not zoicha, the Torah becomes for him sam hamavas. It's sam chaim, it's medicine to save, but for me it becomes poison. Certain people, this medicine, it could save somebody else's life. I turn it into poison. Then it's very dangerous. That's, he says, it's worse than a sin. I take something from the world and I sin with it. Or I take something myself within. Now you're taking kedusha and using it against itself. This is the Rosh Shal Melech in the Beis HaKiseh. That's lamata adein tachlis. So you have lamata adein tachlis, he went through many levels. Olam Asiyah, klippa in Olam Asiyah. Klippa itself can protect the fruit. It's still klippa, but it protects the fruit. And then there's klippa that when you look at it, it doesn't say I'm protecting the fruit. On the contrary, I want to take over the fruit. The example in Zohar is the Zoina who was hired by the king to create this challenge. But she's doing her job even though she's speaking against the Melech. But she's doing her job. In other words, every moment she could look in the mirror and say, I'm an honest person. I'm doing what the king wants. Even the Zoina, because she was hired by him. And then there's the person who's duped Nebuch by the Zoina, the prince. He's the only one. I'm not doing my job anymore. And that's only a person can do that. An animal can't do that. A malach can't do that. A tree can't do that. They follow their DNA. The only ones who know how not to follow their DNA are people. Your DNA is to be aligned, to be connected, to be in a space of light, love, and empowerment. And then I could lose the plot. In that itself, I could do it because of thousands of reasons, millions of reasons, and with many different things. I could do it with my heart, I could do it with my mouth, I could do it with my head, and then I could do it with the Torah. And that's, he says, is the lowest lamata adein tachlis. And the chiddush is, Orein Soif is lamata adein tachlis. And that's why healing is always possible. Because Orein Soif is lamata adein tachlis. And here we're going to be introduced to the difference between the Zohar saying Orein Soif and lamata adein tachlis. Orein Soif means that the light is infinite. So the light is everywhere. So what does it have to say, lamata adein tachlis? The chiddush lamata adein tachlis is the light is not only everywhere because the light is infinite. The light is expressed in the lamata adein tachlis. In a very, very fascinating way. That's going to be the continuation of the Mamer. The light is expressed in the lamata adein tachlis, even though it's perverted, it's misunderstood, it's misconstrued. If not, we wouldn't call it lamata. In other words, there's no nekuda in which you can't see Ein Sof. Even in the ultimate dysfunctionality, the Ein Sof is present, and that means that at the core, everything could be transformed. That's the Vart. And he's going to show and explain it in every nekuda as we went through all these explanations. In other words, there's never a moment that Orein Sof gave up on you. There's never a moment that you were detached from infinity. Even in the lamata adein tachlis of a person, which means in my lowest space. And it's not pshat that the Oir is everywhere, like you say. Poor God, he went to exile with you, and now he's a victim too. The Oir remains Ein Sof. So in the lamata adein tachlis, there's still the purity of the Ein Sof that is always present. And therefore there can always be sublimation and transformation. There's some things that are very serious, but there's always tshuva. The Rambam says in Hilchas Tshuva, Ein lecha davar ha'omed b'fnei tshuva. Nothing stands in the path of tshuva. It sometimes may be a very difficult journey because it's really lamata adein tachlis.
Doesn't it require misa at some point?
Sometimes there's different kapara, yeah.
You say about Keras that
Yeah.
there's something in this olam.
Yeah.
The point is here is that there's nothing that is beyond the top.
Right. The Orein Sof reaches and is manifested and permeates lamata, below adein tachlis, to no end. Meaning go lower. Sometimes a person looks at themselves. I fell lower and then lower and then lower and then lower and then lower. Yeah? Adein tachlis. I can't even get lower. Tomorrow you can get lower. Right? That's the chiddush of that. And over there we say Orein Sof is there too. And what pshat it's there? It's there as Ein Sof. It's not there as a wounded victim that became part of the problem. It's always part of the solution. But it was there. What do you mean it was there? The whole thing is so that it's not lamata adein tachlis, then it's Ein Sof. No, it's lamata adein tachlis. It's filthy, it's dirty, it's not a nice place. But the Ein Sof is lamata adein tachlis. It's not just the light is infinite. It's accessible in the lamata adein tachlis. That's the word. Infinity could be infinite in its own realm. It's infinite. It's accessible in the lamata adein tachlis. You want to know if it's connected to netzach? He doesn't say clearly, but it could be that midas ha-netzach helps a person access that. In other words, the netzach is the part that's not defeatable, which is the Orein Sof. And that, so it could be it's connected. I mean, it doesn't make clearly that connection, but a fast story I'll finish with. There was the Mittler Rebbe. The Rebbe actually told the story, the first Basi Legani, Tovshin Yod Aleph. The Mittler Rebbe was the son of the Alter Rebbe. The Alter Rebbe's yahrzeit is tonight. Chavdala Teves, the 24th of Teves, the Balatanya. So the Mittler Rebbe was once, a younger man came into him. And he discussed issues, what's known as Chatas Neurim. In other words, mistakes that he made in terms of, intimate issues. Chatas Neurim, intimate issues. Connected to the Ois Bris Kodesh. And he needed a tikkun. He wanted a tikkun. So the Rebbe said that the Mittler Rebbe, he exposed his hand. He rolled up his sleeves. And he showed him, he used the word, the Rebbe used the word, tzafad oirei al atzmai. The skin was tzafad, it was shriveled, shriveled up. The Mittel Rebbe said, das is to libdain chatas no'orem. This is because of what's happening to you. The Rebbe said over the story, the person is coming for help. So you want to help him. What are you saying? Now feel even worse, right? You see, this is because of you. So now how is he supposed to feel? He came for help. He came for a tikkun. So what do you usually do? You want to say, you could do tshuva, I'll help you fix it. So now what does he do? He puts more blame on him. You're guilty not only for yourself, for me also. So the Rebbe said a few words in the Mamer that really clarifies the story. The Mittel Rebbe was actually giving him the ultimate tikkun. The Mittel Rebbe was telling him, don't think for a moment that I was not with you. Don't think for a moment that you went so low and I detached. I was with you. A real Rebbe is with a chassid always. Don't think you ran away to Harei Choshech and I said, Atkan, I'm not going there. I was with you. The Rebbe said, he was so connected to his people, where you go, I'm also going to go. But you know what that means? That means that you can always come back, because I'm not staying there. I went there because I'm going to be with you, but I'm not there. I'm not stuck there. I'm on a journey with you. So he was saying, I stayed with you. I'm with you. You could see it. You could see it on me. You could see the scars. You could see the scars on me. That means I did not disconnect. If I would have disconnected from you, I don't have to have scars. It's your problem. It's not my problem. I didn't do it. It's like the Gemara says, Talmid Shagala, Maglin Rabbi YY. A student who goes into exile or a miklat, Maglin Rabbi YY. So I went with you. That was the biggest tikkun. You understand why that's the biggest tikkun? For two things. First of all, he realized where he took the Mittel Rebbe. And that's the deepest tshuva. And number two, he realized if the Rebbe was always with him, so then we're not stuck. This is a shtickle mashal, I think, for this nakuda. Even this person, who's Maimet Selim Behechel, he teaches, he uses the Hechel. The Tselem is in the Hechel. In other words, he uses the Hechel, putting a Tselem somewhere else. Mela, he put a Tselem in the Hechel. He used the Hechel for the Tselem. He could have put a Tselem in his house. No, in the Hechel he puts a Tselem. That's what he says in footnote. In other words, the Taich is, you're using the Hechel for the Tselem, using the Teda for your Meshagasen. And over there you also say, Oirin Sef Lamata Din Tachlis. So, but Mela, there's always the way up. Is I Teves? Huh? Okay, we'll take a break here. Be'ezer Hashem, the next year will continue, Perek Beis, on Monday morning, 8 o'clock a.m., same place. If you want to take these concentration, fine, just bring them back. If not, just put it here and I'll put it away. We should have the netzach, the complete victory, and the Gula Shleima. Take it from Yad Mamash.
This class is brought to you by the yeshiva.net. Please help us continue the classes. Make even a small contribution at www.theyeshiva.net/donate.